Humphrey B. Neal, The Ruminator, Part 3, Money and the Contrarian. This was written October 1969 as the experts debated in Washington over high-sounding, highly complex subjects associated with the International Monetary Fund, the paper substitute for gold. The SDRs were accepted. What was so frustrating for the ordinary mortal, be he contrary-minded or crowd-minded, was the fact that the economics of money and credit is the least understood, yet the most influential of all the economic factors. We were to enter a new era of experimentation. When I look around my library and see the numerous books having to do with money, I wonder why it is we know so little about it. Somehow when I turn to Brooks Adams, of the famed family that gave us 2 presidents and many brilliant descendants, and his noted book, The Law of Civilization and Decay, 1897, I lose a little of the hopelessness one feels when confronted with monetary and other crises. Brooks Adams was a particularly perceptive student of history. In all of his studies and writings, he focused on ideas that are of concern to us who use contrary thinking to aid our understanding. For example, in the preface to his book, we find this paragraph. Another conviction forced upon my mind by the examination of long periods of history was the exceedingly small part played by conscious thought in moulding the fate of men. At the moment of action, the human being almost inevitably obeys an instinct like an animal. Only after action has ceased does he reflect. I have often mentioned Lincoln's remark that events had controlled him. He hadn't controlled events. One sees the world torn today by uncontrollable events. Decisions are constantly made by guess and by God, as the old expression has it. Brooks Adams put it this way: these controlling instincts in history are involuntary and divide men into species, distinct enough to cause opposite effects under identical conditions. Among the controlling traits that are especially observed in our practice of contrary ruminating are fear and greed. These 2 emotional traits come to the surface whenever some monetary event breaks in the news. First we fear what the event will do, and then we try to figure out a way to gain by it. Adams contended that fear stimulates the imagination, while greed dissipates energy. His thesis is a bit involved, but you get the sense of it, as he suggests that the velocity of the social movement of any community is proportionate to its energy and mass, and its centralization is proportionate to its velocity. Therefore, as human movement is accelerated, societies centralize. Then as they centralize, greed takes over, so to speak, and the accumulated capital, therefore gain, becomes the controlling force. During these stages, monetary experiments are continually brought forward. In the autumn of 1969, the latest monetary invention, the SDR, were being sold to the Western world as the great blessing that will free everyone from the tyranny of gold. Perhaps the only reliable contrary thought one dares to hold when monetary innovations are presented is simply one of doubt. Old-timers have confidence only in gold, whereas the younger and newer economists are unafraid to experiment with substitutes for what they have been called our barbaric metal. A speaker contends that gold may be barbaric, but is no relic. A review of depressions reveal how in every cycle the crisis developed when money and credit became overextended. No answer to the monetary riddle is foreseeable, so long as bankers, businessmen and speculators act normally, which is what they will push for profits when and as long there is capital gain to be made. They will leave the idealistic distaste for money and the power of money to the hippies. The trained contrarian recognizes the periods of monetary overextension and guards against the inevitable corrections. He need not understand the riddle of money to avoid its perils.